it's the morning after the night before when the announcement of the important dates came. And happy I am that the local government seats that need tidying up in terms of the representatives, that everything will be held on one day. Right. What we witnessed in Halfway Tree on Sunday wasn't normal. It wasn't normal in terms of the size of the crowd. It wasn't normal in terms of the vibe from the crowd. It wasn't normal in terms of their reaction to what came from the platform. It wasn't normal in terms of the behavior of the crowd, because I saw a report that there was a fight that broke out, but the police were quick to say, no, it was just people marching. There was no fight. So as far as I'm concerned, and as far as I sought to inform myself, and I did speak to several police personnel, there was no incident of violence. That's not normal for a massive political gathering. There's always a skirmish or two. There wasn't even that. And I know people will say, ha 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 ha, crowds don't mean anything. It's a rubbish argument, because even for people who host their own birthday party and publicize it for the whole community to come, and if only 2 people turn out, they're going to feel bad. Even for a birthday party, because they're going to feel like, well, nobody don't appreciate me, you know? So when a party organizes and pulls out its core supporters, remember, you know, these things are not a party's supporters, because clearly how many 100,000 people will vote for a political party at the election? There was not that in Halfway Tree. What there was, tens of thousands of Jamaicans representing the core support of the JLP came out, not just to hear the date, but to hear messages reaffirmed about why they ought to give the green side the endorsement come election day. And so size does matter. Crowds matter, because a political campaign that can't pull sufficient numbers of its core support to a mass event is already dead in the polls, is already dead in the water. Because if your core support not going to support you on the election day, then fringe supporters will definitely not. So it is always a good marker to see how much of my core supporters are willing to travel from far and wide to attend upon this mass rally. And they did find themselves in Halfway Tree, traveling from far and wide. The furthest and the widest breadths of the island had people represented there. And you can't but make comparisons. I remember in 2016, when the PNP had its mass rally to announce the election date, Mr. Simpson Miller did. And I was in the crowd working. And I met up in a everlasting crowd. I couldn't believe that there were so many comrades packed into Halfway Tree Square that night. February 2016. Well, no, it wouldn't have been 20. Yes, for sure it was 2016. Yes, February 2016, yes. And I said, what? What is this? The numbers were huge. That crowd was easily eclipsed on Sunday. It wasn't a close thing. And the people, the fire personnel and the police personnel who are skilled in assessing crowds, they would tell you, say, boy, yeah. And so what does this mean about the appetite for the message that the JLP is pushing? What does this mean for the support that, again, I stress, the core support of the Labour Party has for their party leader and their party? Contrast the feeling among Labourites now and the local government elections last year. It wasn't the same, wasn't it? And even though you say, well, it's a local government election, so you have to make an allowance for the fact that these are local polls, which people don't normally support in huge numbers. The fact is, there's a base feeling that a party carries into an election. And the Labourites were perhaps disinterested, perhaps distracted. Maybe some of them were disillusioned in February last year. The feeling wasn't the same. Well, I can tell you, being in that crowd on Sunday, there is no negative emotion that you can attach to what happened there yesterday. Every Labourite is like a phone, fully charged, 100% on the screen. They are ready to go, and they believe. They believe in what Holness and company are telling them. So this is the JLP's moment. The PNP's moment will come in this campaign. But for now, we're talking about Holness and that team. And when you heard speaker after speaker talk about achievements in office, and when you heard them stress the things that had been done already, that's when you realize that we are at a higher standard of our governance, because this is now the way we will evaluate candidates lining up for political office at the general election. This is how we'll now evaluate a government going into an election. Show us the 200 and odd achievements like the JLP published in their book. Read through your scroll of achievements like Floyd Green did, like Tufton did. Go into the details of what your government has achieved in the way that Johnson Smith did when she's talking about what the Holness administration has done. Talk about solid achievements which are outside of interpretation and opinion, because those are fact. I mean, the sky is above, isn't that? There's no argument over that, even though some people would argue against it not being there. You know, but you know those people already. Yeah? Vaz speaks about solid achievements. That's the standard by which we'll now judge our transport and energy minister. And roll all of that into one. And that's the package that we expect. Going forward, show me your record. Now I hear people saying that, you know, political parties have always campaigned on their record. That's not true. Because so much of parties before this point, the record has been spotty, it has been dodgy, it has been shameful. You tell me which party before now was campaigning on what it had done for crime. I'll wait. You see how that sound? Tell me which party before now was campaigning on what it had done for the economy in tangible ways. So the big headlines, what it had done for debt, what it had done for jobs, what it had done for the expansion in key areas of the economy. Tell me when a government had those things front and center. A government always hid those things, always tried to campaign on other things, because those represented the collective Achilles heel of every administration. You know the legend of Achilles. So when he went to the river Styx, his mother held him by his ankle and dipped him into the river to make him immortal. But the part she held was his heel, is right at his Achilles, yeah? That was where her hand was, so that part that never touched the water. That's why that part was vulnerable. Well, that's the vulnerability that parties before now seeking re-election always had. So again, my friends, people will make noise and say, a political party has always campaigned on its record. No. I have been working in this thing since the 2007 general election. And I can tell you, no national security minister before Dr. Horace Chang, none, could boldly talk about crime reduction on his watch. And even if they talked about crime reduction, it was maybe a 1% or a 3% at best. And then they'd lament and say, well, we still have not been able to do anything for the police in terms of increasing mobility, improving their working conditions by building and refurbishing stations and doing that was not in their argument. So this is new, and that is why I'm saying, and it's not a labor right argument, you know. It just so happens that the labor rights are the ones doing this thing. They are the ones setting the standard. I can't go back from this point as a journalist to evaluate the speech of a prime minister or the performance of a government by the framework and the stencil that applied in 2016, 2011, 2007, 2002, and 1997. No. Because a different standard has been set. Chang can come on stage and talk about crime reduction and there'll be nobody looking at their toes like, all right, what am I going to move on from the point, man, because we don't really have nothing to go on this, you know. Which is how previous national security ministers at political rallies, oh, and by the way, they were often not given prominence on the bill, you know, at speaking engagements publicly, you know, the national security ministers, you know, because those were always the most unpopular ministers. But now you have a national security minister who can take to a stage at a mass rally and be talking about solid achievements, things going in the right direction. And then you have people who say, oh, the fact that crime has been cut, murders especially by 40%, people are not feeling it. They say you can't feel pain in your brain, but I swear my brain is hurting me right now. There are no pain receptors in your brain. Many things that are true because I feel some pain in my brain right now, listening to reasoning like that. So I'm saying, Jamaica, my people, we're at a new point. The Holness administration has shown its hand. It has played its hand. It has said to us, these are the things we have done. It now has a core support that is as in love with the party as any group of supporters have ever been with their party. Its fringe support is also looking at Holness and Company and going, Gaga, look goody. You nice so, she nice so. That's the feeling. So now, the opposition with that manifesto launch on Tuesday can muscle its way back into the game. It can show something to make people say, but isn't this a better alternative? But for now, as I said some weeks ago, Holness and them play chess with chess pieces. And we hope for the health of the democracy that the PNP doesn't come on Tuesday and beyond. I play a draft with buckle stopper.